What's going on, my friends? I hope you're all doing absolutely fantastic. And today we're going to be talking about my beloved A7 IV. Now, this camera I've used ever since it has been released in October 2021. I think it's one of the best cameras, if not the best camera in 2023 for hybrid, photo and video. And I'm going to explain the reasons why, 10 reasons why, but also 3 reasons why I don't think you might like it, because there's 3 pretty big cons, but those 3 cons are actually connected. And if Sony fixes those 3 cons, one thing, that's all they need to fix is one thing, this could be the best camera ever released, especially the A7V could be the best future camera. Let's get into it. So the Sony A7VII Mark IV was released in October 2021. It was the successor to the very popular A7 III. Now this has a 33 megapixel BSI CMOS sensor. It's able to do 4K at 60 frames per second with 10-bit 422 codec. It has dual card slots, which one of them is a Type A card. You're able to take 33 megapixel stills up to 10 frames per second in compressed RAW and 6 frames per second in uncompressed RAW. You're able to do live streaming through the USB-C connection. It has a full-sized HDMI, a 3.69 million dot EVF, 5.5 stops of in-body image stabilization. It's fully weather sealed, has a fully articulating screen, the multi-interface hot shoe, and it currently comes in at a price at $24.98 US. Now, the first reason why I absolutely love this camera and why the image quality is incredible is a 7K sensor that downsamples to 4K. So you're getting a nice oversampled sharp 4K image, so much detail, so much information, amazing dynamic range. The image quality is just fabulous on this thing. I just love having downsampled sensors because it gives you so much more information to work with. It looks sharper, it looks more crisp, it looks just incredible. And also the second reason is that oversampled 1080p. So the same thing, it is a very high resolution sensor, and when you're shooting in 1080p, it actually downsamples and then gives you a better looking 1080p. And I've done a video comparing the 1080p in this against the FX3's 4K 100 frames per second. So check that one out. You'll be surprised how good the A7 IV's 1080p at 100 frames per second actually is. And also with that 1080p, if you go into S&Q mode, you can actually shoot in 10-bit 422, which is amazing. But obviously S&Q doesn't have any audio baked in, and it pretty much bakes in the slow motion in the camera. Now, speaking about that 10-bit 422, in your regular A7VC-SI and A7VC-S and A7VC-HS, you have the ability to do 10-bit 422, which is completely game-changing when it comes to color grading. And we all know that Sony colors before in the 8-bit cameras, the S-Log 3 just wasn't usable. You had to use HLG or you had to use the Cine profiles. S-Log just wasn't really an option unless you shot it absolutely perfect, and there's just not enough colors to work with. 10-bit gives you pretty much 1.07 billion different colors as opposed to 16.7 million colors of 8-bit. Now, number 4 happens to be in the stills mode. It gives you 33 megapixel stills, which I feel like is that best, like perfect sweet spot. 24 megapixels beforehand in the A7 III was great. I had no problems, but that extra 9 megapixels actually makes a difference, especially when it comes to cropping, because not all the photos you shoot are going to be absolutely perfect framing and composition. You're going to have to crop a little bit, straighten some horizons, all those kind of things, and the extra resolution does help there. And also with that 33 megapixels, it does seem to be like the best file size, like the A7R series. The megapixels are really high, the file sizes are just too high, but it also is great that Sony added the small, medium, and large compression ratios as well, which is really good, and you do have it in this one as well, which gives you the ability to do lossless raw compression. Number 5 happens to be that mode dial on the top that you can switch from photo to video to S and Q. Now that is amazing when it comes to hybrid shooting, because you can actually save all your photography settings in the photo mode, and then when you switch over to video mode, it's still stuck into your video settings, so you don't have to chop and change going from one setting to the next, and then like your S-Log profile is still on your photos, and it's just like it's a pain. But the A7 IV just obviously fixed that, and it's absolute, I hate to say it, but it is a bit of a game changer, especially if you are doing BTS content, if you're doing content on the fly where you need photos, you need videos. This is really important and absolutely incredible. And the great thing is you can go into your settings and select which ones you want to keep settings for and which ones you want to make sure that it completely changes the settings. Now, number 6 happens to be crop mode, and we did experience this with the A7 III because that was an oversampled sensor as well. And crop mode is really good because you can get that extra reach without losing any resolution whatsoever. Because it's a downsampled sensor, you're cropping in on the sensor and you're still going to be getting really nice high quality images when it comes to video. And that also gives you the ability to use APS-C lenses, so you have so many more different lenses that you can actually utilize in that crop mode, which is amazing. Now, number 7 is pretty basic and pretty much every camera should have this, and that is the flip screen. Look, it's not the flip screen from the A7R5. That thing is game-changing and incredible, and I really hope they bring that to the newer models of all the other Sony cameras, which is, unpopular opinion, but I know a lot of photographers don't like the full flip screen. They like, having it articulating up a little bit. This one sort of flips up, out and about, and it's crazy, amazing, and I wish it was in this, but hey, we've still got the flip screen. I can still see myself on the side, and that is important at the end of the day because it's in focus, you're recording, you don't need a monitor on top. So good. And talking about the monitor on top, and reason number 8 happens to be the HDMI. We do have full-size HDMI, and that is amazing for video shooters because if you do run and gun videos, you're going to need, most likely, an external monitor. And having that full-size HDMI is so much better than those terrible micro HDMIs. I've only ever broken one, and that was literally maybe about a month ago with the ZV-E1, because this has the micro HDMI. Shame, it is what it is. That has full-size HDMI, so it's so much better. Now, also talking about that crop mode, reason number 9 happens to be the lenses. Because you do have that crop mode, you have so many lenses that you can utilize. But not in just saying that as well, is that we have Sony E-mount. Sony E-mount has, Tamron, Laowa, Sigma, Sirui, DZO film. There's so many lens companies out there that are producing lenses for the E-mount, which gives us so many different options. And we can actually chop and change lenses from the Sony Venice. That literally has the Sony E-mount as well, all the way down until our cheapest camera, which is amazing. And it just gives you so much more flexibility and creativity because you have more lenses available to you. Now, number 10 is actually one that I use quite a lot, and when it comes to Zoom calls, it's that USB-C connection to my computer, and I can use my A7 IV as a webcam, and it's so simple, but every time someone jumps on my Zoom calls, they're like, whoa, your video quality is really good. That must be a good webcam. I'm like, it's actually my camera. It's connected directly to my computer. It's just one of those small things that if you have a professional interview and your videos look professional, they take you a little bit more seriously because it looks really good. And it's just so simple now. You plug it directly into that USB-C on the side, you plug it into your computer, and you've got this incredibly awesome image quality from the A7 IV. Okay, now, the 3 things that I don't like, and that happens to come down to one major thing that's connected with all these 3. But we'll talk about number 1, and that is that crop in 4K 60. Now, this was a bit of a downside when it was released. Everyone was bagging it out, but I can understand the reasons why, because it is not a super fast readout sensor. So it's really hard to get that 4K 60. You're going to have like incredibly bad rolling shutter, which we'll talk about in a second. But you have to take into consideration of what lenses you're going to be using. So the A7 IV sometimes is just really difficult to use because I'm a prime lens user. I use pretty much primes all the time, all the G Master primes. And when you put it into 50 frames per second, you've got that crop, so you can't zoom out quickly because you've got a prime lens, so it already crops in. So you just have to take into consideration a little bit more when you do want to go into slow motion, or you're going to be going into slow motion. You've got to account for that with that lens change. And that is a bit of a downside. Now, number 2 happens to be that rolling shutter. Because it's a fast readout sensor, there is a bit of rolling shutter. And It's not super noticeable, but if you do sort of fitness videos and you whip the camera around pretty fast, you can see it, but it's not crazy bad. But when it comes to like baseball and tennis, when you're photographing that, you will see a little bit of rolling shutter because of the slow readout sensor. So it is what it is with that one. And when it comes to those sports, number 3 happens to be the stills. It's only 6 frames per second in uncompressed RAW. Like that's pretty slow. And if you want 10 frames per second, you got to go compressed RAW. But you know, I did a comparison between compressed RAW and uncompressed RAW, and it's pretty much zero difference. Like you won't even notice a difference unless you are pushing and pulling extreme color grades here and there. That's where you will most likely notice a difference. Now, all these 3 bad points are connected to one major thing, and that is the sensor readout. So if this had a stacked sensor, that's where this camera would be extremely powerful. That's where you would have full frame 4K, 50 and 60. That's where you would have faster burst frame rates when it comes to photography. You wouldn't have to do 6 frames per second in uncompressed RAW. It would be much higher than that. And obviously the rolling shutter issues would be so much better. It would be almost like an A7S III. And you're probably thinking, yeah, stacked sensor, the A1. The A1 has that 50 megapixel stack sensor, but if we had a 33 megapixel stack sensor, technically it should be faster. And I think it's that sweet spot when it comes to that resolution size, the 33 megapixels. I mean, 24 was pretty much a sweet spot as is as well, but hey, 7K downsample to 4K is amazing. But hey, A7V, fingers crossed, that would be amazing. If there was a stack sensor, I don't know if that's going to be happening. That's just pure speculation, but that's one thing that would make this camera, or the A7V, the best-selling camera of all time. I guarantee it. If it had a stack sensor, best-selling camera of all time. Anyway, my friends, please comment below if you agree with me. If there are some things that you love that I've missed, put them in the comments below. I'd love to know your thoughts. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, obviously give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you guys in the next one. All right, let's get it.